Oh, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back.
Indeed.
It's us again. If you haven't seen our previous discussion, we did one on Survivor Borneo. Basically, Alec here had not seen Survivor until that season. We're making our way through slowly, desperately trying to catch up to season 37.
One season at a time.
Yeah. And now we're going to be watching other things between Survivor to make it a slower catch up. So I have seen a good amount of Survivor. Talked about this before. I mean, you can go watch our other discussion if you haven't seen it. I suggest you doing that because it'll inform this one, and where we build as the series evolves.
Yes.
So we're talking about the Australian Outback. Just last week we finished watching it, and primarily the last time we talked a lot about the format and everything. We won't have to really talk about that since it's more or less the same format. You know, the merged at the same time, same size jury and everything. So I primarily want to focus on the differences between the two seasons because I think it's pretty drastic tone change from the first season, where you're focused on Richard Hatch is kind of the focus of the season. You'd say you're kind of following his journey to victory.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I interpret Australian Outback as like the story of how Colby lost rather than the story of how Tina won. That just seems to be the way they edited it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair kind of assessment of the season as a whole.
Yeah, it's like they really kind of tell the story in like a lot of Colby's perspective, and he's like the hero of the story, whereas you have like the side characters like Jerry, who are almost like the villains of the story, and it's like ultimately in the end you have the decision, which is a pretty well talked about decision in the Survivor community, that ultimately Colby takes Tina to the end instead of Keith, where people think it would have been an easy win if you brought Keith to the end. And also the fact that the elements played pretty much a much bigger part than Borneo. They focused a lot on the flooding. There was fires. There was all sorts of stuff they went through in a much different environment too.
Yeah, it was like it seemed to me that it was hot during the day and very cold at night. Despite me having some geography knowledge, I don't really remember too much about. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've taken any geography stuff, but I really can't remember what Australia's like the different areas of Australia, what their climate is like.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only assume that's typical for. I think it was in the winter when they were there, like winter in the.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when it was filmed, somewhere around there.
Yeah, but yeah, the elements were much more of a focus this season, which was really interesting actually, because they do drill it as Survivor. They you kind of, when you hear that, you sort of picture kind of like a man against nature sort of thing, like you're trying to survive. It's really, they often pit it, at least in the first season, it was pitted a lot more against people versus other people. But like in this season, it was a lot more man versus nature, which was really kind of interesting. Like as in terms of a dynamic, I think it was interesting because I mean, at one point we have our gallant crews, like whole campsites getting washed away by a river, and it's just like there's that. So we get like third-degree burns, people like lack of food, people like wasting away. It was like a lot more people were like losing weight in like a bad way in this season, a lot more so than, I mean, you could say that people were losing weight in the first season as well, but like to the point where lethargy kind of started to settle in a lot more, like so much so that like Jeff comes out and is like, boy, you guys are having a rough time, aren't you?
It's almost like this was the season one of a different show to me, because the first season focused on Richard Hatch, which was very strategic, and this one, it seemed like there was almost less of a focus on strategy than the first season. I don't know exactly why that is, but it's like they took the game in a different way. You could see in Borneo, there's a lot more. I don't know, even towards the end, the final four with Wigglesworth and Rich and all them, they still had like some. They weren't like all together, and wholesome. Whereas in Australian Outback, they showed them getting like a lot closer, like calling each other family and everything. And if you look at someone like Colby, who is the focus of this season, he's not like the strategic mastermind like Richard Hatch was. He's like a lot more just like, I'm going to win competitions, be a good guy, be a gentleman.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But I think the elements, that weather played a huge part of that, I think.
Yeah, because it makes you bond more naturally, I think.
Yeah, because in Borneo, a lot of them were just able to just chill out, hang out on a beach, and tan the whole time. I mean, not saying that it was always the most relaxing thing, because obviously they showed storms and stuff that happened moving through, but it seemed weather was a lot kinder to them in the first season, where it was just setback after setback in the Outback. So
yeah, the challenges, there was a little bit of a difference in challenges. They brought back some similar ones, but they had they didn't have in the first season the one where they had to light the fire, go back and forth between the water, filling buckets up, and then get the fire up.
Yeah.
So they had some interesting ones in here. Again, there were some challenges that didn't really translate too well on screen, but I felt like they did a better job overall.
I think we commented on the with the lanyard one, where there was where it's like the maze, where they having to like clip on and clip off. And it's just like jump cutting to different people, and we're like, we have no idea what's going on.
The same one they did in the first season where Jervis won, the clipping thing. Yeah, but looking back, I don't think there were too many other than that ones where you have like people running around in the forests or like the woods. I mean,
yeah, it was a little less chaotic in terms of that. There were a lot more relay type. I felt like, I mean, there were some in the first season, but I felt like there was more emphasis on a relay type challenges in those, for sure.
Yeah. And you saw like Colby was like just super dominant in the challenges after the merge, like just really, he was the one threat. Like Keith stood up on that perch for like however long, 8-9 hours, whatever. Was it longer than that? Something like that. Like Keith won a couple, but other than that, it was like Colby winning everything.
Yeah.
Overall, would you say, comparing Borneo and Australian Outback, which season do you prefer?
That's an interesting question. I've actually been thinking about that over the last week. I think I still give the edge to the first season, but I really liked the tonal shift of the second season a lot, in terms of kind of what we've been talking about, because I think it encompasses more of the word survivor in general. I think it does a better job of, instead of just kind of being mind games and outwitting everybody, it's that, but it's also actually literally surviving out in the wilderness. To the point where it's like we have to remake camp again, and that's a huge struggle. Lighting fires is a struggle. Having to ration food is a struggle. Finding food is a struggle. I mean, it really, really. There were whole episodes where it was kind of a downer to watch at times, just because of how much they weren't having fun, during parts of it. But so I kind of liked that aspect of it a little bit. But
yeah, they did a lot of dramatic things with the editing too that I don't remember them doing as much in the first season. Like super dramatic, especially in the finale, where it's like super dramatic shots and them like just talking about like their lives and like retrospect.
Yeah, that went on for like 10 to 15 minutes. They were like going through all the different people who were there,
and throwing in a bunch of interesting shots of wildlife and stuff too. Just like
we talked to the finale. They were really showing off the B-roll. They were really showing off like the nature shots, the really great, when they weren't using the potato camera.
Yeah, they like to cut to that potato camera. It's like their version of the GoPro back in the day.
It's like my webcam, except they're using it on broadcast TV.
That's right. And yeah, with that tonal shift, I mean, also naturally going from the first season, you're gonna have things changing, like a lot of differences when you get a different group together. So the second season, there were a lot of firsts this season, where like you had the first person who was accused of bringing beef jerky into the camp. That was great. Kel, shout out to Kel.
Yeah, we were hoping they would discuss that on the reunion episode.
Reunion. Nope, we just got into Dev's deep depression.
Yeah, I was like, I sure hope somebody was like keeping the tabs on her when she left there. Jeez.
Like everybody else took something positive away. Well, Mitchell said, "Yeah, I would never do that again." A couple of people said they would never do it again, but
yeah,
Deb was just not. It's like they forced her to be there too. She was like, "I didn't even want to be here to begin with," but they convinced her.
Yeah, like, but wasn't it Mitchell though, or was it Mitchell or Kel? One of them said it's like, yeah, but I've gotten to know her like pretty well after this show. Like the show brought me and her, like we've hung out outside the show. So it was like, I mean, Deb, would you really say you've made connections from this? At the very least, could you not like have something positive to say from that?
The local press would like crap on Deb that much. I mean, she got voted out first. She didn't have an opportunity to do that much.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's not 2001 or 2002 anymore, so we have no idea what the context of that is. But yeah, that just seemed really wild to me that like the press was just lambasted me. I was like, why? You were on the show for like 40 minutes.
They kept posting every headline, local whatever town gets voted out first. Voted out first on Survivor.
Yeah. I kind of did have to feel bad for her during that, but
yeah, it's just like why force her? Well, like really try to strong arm her to get into the finale. Wouldn't you be better off with her not being there, being depressed? I don't know.
Yeah,
like we want to have everybody.
She seemed to kind of warm up a little bit more as the reunion went on a little bit, but yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, we had Kel, first beef jerky incident. Which I'm assuming since he said he was like really despises Jerry for that, I'm assuming he didn't actually have beef jerky then, because you wouldn't hold a grudge for actually bringing beef jerky in. Like he was just chewing on grass, and it gets called out on national TV, like he was cheating.
Yeah.
But then we had Mitchell was the first tie vote survivor, where it was Mitchell and Keith, and Mitchell goes home because he had the most votes cast in previous tribal councils.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
That was interesting. I mean, Mitchell didn't have a huge impact on the game, but it's not like I was so sad to see Mitchell go. But it's a historic moment, at least.
Yep.
And then you had, of course, a huge turning point in the season was when Mike Scoopin was medically evacuated, fell in a fire, and that really could have changed the entire outcome of the season, because assuming they were going to win, Kucha was going to win the next competition, then they would have gone in with the majority rather than going in even. That would change everything.
Yeah, and there was a lot of precedent for them being able to do that, because they had just been getting destroyed before that. Ogakor had just been getting destroyed in the competitions before that, and they were the team I think that was kind of suffering the most from some of the elements and such. So
yeah,
but yeah, after that happened, that was easily the turning point of the season, because they came into the merge even.
Yeah, and then when they came in even, they had another tie vote, which took out Jeff and then gave the advantage to Ogakor suddenly, and then it's like, oh well, all downhill from there.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy that
it's like
it turned out like that.
It's like it's hard to think of Survivor in like absolutes, because like theoretically Ogakor still could have won that one competition,
right?
Could have won in even.
It depends what the competition was, really, which we'll never know, unless they basically, it's possible that they just sort of reused it later on, but
really, like the whole focus of the show would have shifted, because we focused so much on the focused so much on the Ogakor people, whereas probably would have been a Kucha majority. Then we'd have to focus a lot more on them and like see how that plays out. Wonder who would have made it to the end then. And then ultimately we come down to the final tribal council where, yeah, like I said, Colby brings Tina to the end. But we did get another 4-3 vote in the end, the same as last season.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty close vote. Let me try to
get a call up the wiki again or whatever. The
votes for who voted for who. So Keith, Elizabeth, Jerry, and Alicia voted for Tina to win. Wow. And Roger, Amber, and Nick voted for Colby to win. That's interesting. That I forgot that Jerry voted for Tina to win.
Well, yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense. She clearly had some lingering
feelings.
Yeah. Well, in the negative side, because Colby was kind of.
And that was Colby's one big lie that he talked about was saying he was going to stick with them.
Yeah, and it was like, nope, he didn't.
Yeah.
He was also Colby was just really interesting to watch. Like you said, they did sort of frame the whole season around him. He was very interesting to watch the whole time because he was kind of a little bit more casual, playful, a little flirtatious, kind of earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
But then there got to a point where he said, during the it was during one of the interview things, whatever they call it. I don't remember. You said what they were called, confessionals.
Yeah.
During one of those, he basically said something effective like, "Nah, I'm just not gonna let any of this distract me." And basically from then on out, he had a complete mental shift. He started taking the game a little bit more seriously, and he just wasn't flirtatious anymore. Really, he was just like, "No, I'm focusing on the game."
Yeah.
So, which was interesting. I mean, it clearly worked in his favor because he got pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
By pretty far, I mean he was the runner-up. So
yeah, and Colby and Tina were together from like the very beginning too, and they stuck it out.
Yeah.
And like Keith, they tagged him along, and then Colby just hated on him in the end.
Yeah, he just was not a Keith fan. Clearly,
he was just like, yeah, we just brought him along. I'm just glad that Keith doesn't have to win. I can lose tomorrow, and I'll wake up happy because Keith doesn't get to win $1 million.
Yeah, and that was it was almost like he didn't even want Keith to get the 100K.
Damn, but yeah, looking back, it definitely feels like Colby could have won that if he did better in the final tribal council, because I really felt like he was weak there with his answers. Like the fact that he came out of the gate just almost like not trying to win in the questioning, it seemed like.
Yeah, there was like when Jeff was like, "Oh, so final statements," and he was just like, "I don't have any." It was like, "What?
Yeah.
you can't do that." And then Tina just like came out of the gate, and she was just like or I should say, coming back into the gate because it was the final question. She was just like, "Yeah, I mean," and she like goes on like a good 30 seconds about why they should vote for her. So it's like
Colby's answers were just not there. They were just not it. But it's interesting because Tina, like, they didn't. I've heard that she did a lot more that they didn't end up like showing in the editing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you don't get a true sense of like all the strategic things she was doing.
Yeah.
Until like them talking about it after the fact, like, and talking about it in the final tribal council, like how important she was.
Yeah.
But other than that, she just was kind of like a side character there throughout the whole season.
Yeah, there were a few times you kind of got a sense that she was doing a lot to sort of like hold things together a little bit. That she was kind of like almost like an overseer, like the mom, kind of like the mom character of the. But like, but she also, it didn't seem like she was like actively strategizing, kind of. Yeah. So
it's just a very different, going off of Borneo. It's a very different play style than like the previous winner. Like Rich was very in your face. Like, I am strategizing. I am trying to manipulate these people.
Very methodical. Like from the beginning of the show. And
they showed it in all of his confessionals, talking about everything. He like talked to people about it on the island. So it's a very different style. But it's just interesting to see the two winners because it really shows you can play the game very differently. There's not a science to Survivor. It's like depends on the people you're playing with, depends on the circumstances. It's like it's really interesting.
I think that's a worthwhile in your second season too, because you don't really want everything just to be just like the first season where everyone is just it's the same thing every time. That's why the shift in location is really interesting. That's why having a whole group of new people is really interesting. I think that's why it's gone on for as many seasons as it has. It's just it continues to stay fresh that way. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's like it's a constant social experiment. And like even if they can see previous seasons, it's never going to go the same way. So it's like you're always different people. Like you go in with one plan, and it's going to completely change because you have to adapt to everything happening. You know, it's really interesting. Okay, let's give out some awards. Who's your favorite of the season overall?
My favorite of the season overall. So I remember not really liking Keith a whole lot, and then sort of coming around to him near the end. I don't think he's my favorite. He might be a runner-up though.
Really?
Yeah. It was weird because like he's definitely not the most likable person, but like there was just something really relatable about when because he's like a chef, and then I'm not a chef, but there's something really relatable about when someone comes. Like it's like, oh hey, you know, it's like this is like my thing, and then someone else comes along and it's just like, oh yeah, I can do it like way better than you, and then she does, and that just gives you a huge chip on your shoulder, and there is just something really relatable about that, and that kind of like I felt like that fed into basically everything he did throughout, and that could just be in my mind, but I almost felt like that sort of fed into everything he did throughout the whole rest of the season. But he played a really kind of like most everybody this season. He played kind of a quiet game, but it was like I don't know how he was able to just coast along like that. It was almost like a Jervis sort of thing, but he arguably did a little bit more than Jervis did.
Well, yeah, and the problem you face with that is like that's the thing with the Survivor is tough too, is you can play a game like that and you can like make it far playing that way, but apparently he had no chance at winning. It was just not a winning way to play the game.
Yeah. But my probably I mean I really like Colby, but I think I'd honestly have to give it to Roger. I really liked him a lot. Yeah.
Roger. Good guy Roger. He's like he's like the Rudy of the season almost, but
he was Rudy was a little bit more grumpy.
Yeah,
Roger was just kind of like I'm just a Southern gentleman basically.
That's right. Yeah.
More or less, you know, he was just a really nice guy. He was kind of like a dad to what was her name there? Elizabeth. Sorry, I'm already the name's already escaping me. Yeah, Elizabeth. And it was just like their relationship was really cute. I really liked that a lot. So,
and speaking of Keith, I have a little book here from Keith himself.
Where did you get that?
I ordered it online. It was like a joke thing with when me and my family were watching this. Is like Keith is just like the best. So I love Keith, and like I looked at what, awesome. And this is like the one book he put out. It's a tiny little cookbook, but
that's funny. I can cook rice, so can you.
I got a nice Keith signature as well.
As well as like whatever was going on with this chef man.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's like all right. I just wanted it as like a piece of memorabilia for the experience.
That's that's awesome. That's really fun.
It was like I remember it being really cheap on Amazon.
Yeah, probably good for like $5 probably.
But yeah, there's that. And also, we have another award to give out, the Cutie of the Season award.
Cutie of the Season.
Who's it going to be? I have a feeling it's between two, and those two are Amber and Elizabeth.
It's between those two, yeah. I'm going to have to give it to Elizabeth. Even though Amber has those really great eyes, but I have a weakness for blondes, so
Mhm. And yeah, you talked about Amber the whole season, the blue eyes, especially in the intro, and then Elizabeth came out of nowhere to snipe the victory.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's because like as it might have been just the fact that like they didn't like Amber was like I was like, is she even in this show? There were sometimes I was like it was particularly early on, and I was like, who is that other person? She was like almost never shown,
Yeah.
and then she was sort of like again kind of like a passive player. She sort of just sat on the sidelines and then tried to like ally herself wherever the wind was going.
Yeah, I was gonna say Elizabeth was an active player because she was
Yeah,
constantly like fighting the majority, whereas
yeah,
Amber was kind of like in a comfortable position. She kind of went along with it, and then like they just kind of took her off. They're like after they took Jerry out without her knowing, and they're like, "Yeah, we
yeah,
don't need you anymore either." So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so there's something to be said about somebody who is active and obviously has more of a camera presence. So I think that's kind of why
right,
Elizabeth gets the edge for me.
okay.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the season?
Well, at the very least, they slightly improved tribal council's seating arrangement. Not terribly, but it's still a little bit better than what was in the previous season, where they're all like hunched together on this
Uh-huh.
log.
Oh, in the intro, I think the first season, the intro had some more epic shots. Like
Yeah,
you didn't get any dramatic eye shots like with Wigglesworth there.
yeah. But they still got to do something about. They still have to do something about the rain that happens at tribal council and like have to write
Yeah.
in the rain and all the soaking wet pieces of paper.
Okay. I thought you were gonna talk about the audio, like if it's too loud sometimes, like with the bugs, where you can't hear the
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. That was something that we talked about too. Yeah, all of a sudden it's like, wow, they did some really good stuff for the time period. It's like, yeah, except for the audio.
hmm
That audio is very. They got to do something about that at some point. But I mean, that's just the technology.
Yeah,
That
they
was
had to use potatoes for cameras back then. They're
like
making a
the
comeback now on the stream.
pseudo GoPros that they
Yeah.
were using, the proto GoPros. Yeah, I mean, overall, still really enjoyed the season as a whole. I thought they did a really hi cat. I thought they did a really great job in the episode where hello. It did a really good job in the episode where Mike got burned. They just did like it was just they were able to like capture the intensity of the moment and like really made you feel kind of what all the rest of the cast was feeling. And it was really intense, shot really well. Yeah, that was some gripping television right there. That was, I mean, you can't script that.
Yeah.
It was really well done, edited, gripping television, and it's a good thing he's okay because that was pretty rough. I remember we had seen the preview beforehand, and you hear the yell, and out of context, that yell sounds really funny. In context, that yell is like gut wrenching because it's like, oh no, he's gotten serious burns. Like that's really not okay. But
Hmm.
I really like the elements again playing a part, and yeah, looking forward to as Africa's next. Correct?
Yeah, Survivor Africa is next, and this is
Yeah.
one I actually haven't seen any of it. I mean, I know the winner, unfortunately, but I'll be
Yeah.
able to experience everything leading up
That's
to it.
that's pretty cool. That's cool. Well, that'll be fun especially if you've never seen it. So even though you know the winner, we'll be able to experience it
Yeah,
first time together. So there you go.
the journey is more important.
That's right.
We're probably gonna be watching something else before the next season for like we're gonna do a little break between each season. So who knows when the next Survivor discussion will be? But as soon as we're finished, we're gonna do another one. So expect that.
Yeah, it'll be good.
All right, thank you all for watching. That's it.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
My cat's telling me I gotta let him out. So.